Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and welcome to another one of my Dota 2 hero guides. Today we're going to be taking a look at Timbersaw. So Timbersaw is a very high mechanical skill hero. You have to kind of practice the hero a lot to get used to his abilities, to combo his abilities together, but once you get used to the hero and how he works, he can be an extremely strong hero. You can pretty much solo carry games with Timbersaw from the off lane. Now, you can play this hero mid occasionally. It does go mid here and there against the right matchups, these kinds of things, but it's primarily an off lane hero, so we're going to be focusing on it as an off lane hero. And like I said, from the off lane, you can solo carry games if you get good at Timbersaw and know how to play this hero. So what are the main strengths of this hero? Well, the first one is that this hero is a lane dominating hero. It doesn't go into the lane level 1 or the first wave as a lane dominating hero. You do need to secure the first few waves. You do need to secure your first level or two to get that level 2, level 3, level 4, and then from there you can dominate the lane. In the beginning, you have to be careful. You have to make sure you don't die, you don't feed, because then that will hurt your game overall. But once you secure, the first 5 minutes, you will just absolutely dominate the game and stomp the game. Because from there, it's just so hard for almost any carry or even combination of carry and support to deal with you. You can largely solo lanes against the right matchups. Now, there are some matchups that do a lot of magic damage that can counter you in some ways, but even then, you usually can escape, get your health back up, and then go back in and just absolutely destroy these lanes. So what you want to do is you want to start dominating those lanes, get kills if you can, or at least force the enemy to leave the lane, the carry to go jungle, etc., and take the safe lane tower. Then once you do that, you just kind of run around the map in the early to mid game and just become this giant menace that they can't deal with, because the only way they're really killing you mid-game, if you have a decent game, is they have to bring like all 5 heroes. You have to have a ton of disable, a ton of magic damage, and even then, sometimes you won't die. You'll kill all of them. You'll escape with low HP, these kinds of things. So this hero is so hard to deal with from there. And then later on into the game, even, at that mid-game portion, but once you get some items later on into the game, you deal a lot of damage on this hero because you deal pure damage with pretty much all your skills, and you also reduce the enemy's strength. So against tanky strength heroes, you will also counter them and do a ton of damage to those heroes as well. So because of that, this hero can solo carry games. You can snowball the laning stage, then you can snowball the game. In general, you can pretty much always do damage. You almost never fall off. Now, obviously, super late game, once people get a ton of HP and armor and all these things, and more mobility, BKBs, yes, you're not going to do that much through BKB, so that is a weakness. Once people pop BKBs and they lock you down and all this kind of stuff, you're not going to be able to output as much damage as you used to. But once those BKBs are down, you have Lotus Orb, other kind of things that help you survive. You can even do more damage into the late game, and we can see players like Amar and these kinds of players that are really good at Timbersaw dominate games, and so you can do the same thing on this hero. The other weakness of the hero, along with BKB and these kinds of things, are lockdown. Break is the biggest one, obviously, with Silver Edge or any hero that has break, so that's big, so you need to worry about that. And the early laning stage, kind of like I talked about. So the very beginning of the lane, making sure you don't feed, you don't die when you're weak, that you just secure your XP, that you just don't lose all your HP early on, because you want to have that for your level 4, level 5, all these timings that you get later, and then you can start dominating the lane. So you just need to not feed in the beginning, make sure you secure your early laning stage, and then you can pretty much snowball games. So that's how to think about Timbersaw in general. Now let's jump in and take a look at his abilities. So now that we understand Timbersaw in general, we can take a look at his abilities and see how he's able to be that lane dominating hero and good damage late game hero that can just snowball the game like I talked about. So first we're going to take a look at Whirling Death, and this is the ability that not only does damage but is really good against strength heroes, because you actually cause the enemy to lose strength. So that makes them lose a ton of HP, but also damage, pretty much everything they use, because it's their primary attribute, which is really good against these strength heroes like I talked about. So what you do is you pretty much just walk up to, the enemy, and in the AoE you have this little blade that spins out, so you can press that and it has an animation there, and then it hits the enemy and they take damage. The one thing about this ability, though, that is important to understand is that if you cut a tree with this saw, which is Whirling Death, you actually do more damage. You can see there I did a bunch of damage to the axe, but then when I went and cut trees with it at the same time, it did like half of axe's damage. It was absolutely insane. And then we can also see here this Whirling Death debuff on the enemy. It kind of counts down after you use it, and then once it's over, he gains a little bit of his HP back because he gained his strength back. So just keep that in mind. So you can have multiple stacks of Whirling Death. Once it's at max level, it's a pretty low cooldown. You can use it many times in fights, and obviously you see the stat loss there is a percent, so it's not just a flat stat loss, it's also a percent, which is what really makes this ability scale really well into the late game. The other thing is you can see, obviously, and it's kind of what I mentioned before, is it does pure damage. At the top there, you can see it says damage type pure. So it's not physical, it's not magic, it's actually pure damage, which is one of the main things of this hero. If you want a hero that can kind of just cut through HP, just can cut through armor, and doesn't really care about any items that you can buy, this is one of those heroes that you just will always be doing damage, because pure damage is just so good. So damage of, a normal skill with a damage of 200, you might think, oh, that's not very good, but because it's pure, it just will always be significant, along with that stat loss as well. So that's Whirling Death. Next, we're going to take a look at Timber Chain. So I'll position the axe here a little bit to take advantage of this ability. So what you do with this is you actually just hook it onto a tree. You see it has a fairly long range there, because the chain at max level is fairly long. It increases with each level there. And the chain comes out, basically. You click it in a direction, and then it hits a tree, and then you just kind of go to that tree. It's like hook shot from Clockwork or something like that. But basically, it's a way for you to have extra mobility. You can chase people down. You can get out of scenarios where you're in danger. You can go across cliffs and all these kinds of things. Just any tree that you can attach to and pull yourself to, it's really good for that. Now, keep in mind, let me see if I don't think I can time this here. I'll just try it, though, really quick. I'll level up this. I'll have him cast this, and then... Yeah, it didn't really work there, but you can see the effect. I did get the call off, and he did start chasing me. But anyway, I just kind of wanted to demonstrate, to keep that in mind, that you can get stunned in the middle of your chain. So it's not like once you hit the tree and you pull yourself in, that you're going to always go to the tree. So one of the ways to counter this hero is that you can stun him in the middle of his chain, and that allows him to, or it allows you to basically get on top of him to lock him down and then not let him do this again. Even though it has a relatively low cooldown at max level, you have that short amount of time that you can actually get on top of him and do a ton of damage. The other thing that it does is it also does pure damage. So you can see that obviously when I hit the axe here, and I go through the axe like that, I do damage to him. So keep in mind that any creep or hero that you go through, you will do damage to, and it's also pure damage. So that's Timber Chain. It's mainly a mobility spell, but it's also a way that you can combo all your spells together and do extra damage as well. So those are his two main damage skills. And then the third skill here, the third normal skill, is Reactive Armor. And this is what allows your hero to be so tanky, so hard to deal with, especially in the early laning stage and into that early mid game like I talked about. So basically how this works is if we have axe attack the Timbersaw here, you can see that I will be building up reactive armor stacks with every single attack that the axe hits me with. And so yes, I'm taking a bunch of damage here, but then I start getting a lot of regen, and I start getting a lot of armor, which is what this gives me. So it gives me bonus armor, bonus regen, and the max stacks increase, and the duration increases as well with every level. And so once I get to like higher levels in this, it's just so hard to do any damage to me. So you see how I have a bunch of stacks now, and the axe is just doing no damage. Now the biggest thing with this is that this is also really good when you stand in creep. So I'm not going to walk all the way over here to show you, but just think, if I have 5 creeps attacking me, and I'm getting the stack right now, it's up to 12, 13. I can get the max stacks up to 24 at max level. You just get insane amounts of regen, insane amounts of armor, and you're almost impossible to bring down. Once you level this up, especially early on in the game, you can actually tank tier 1 towers, and they do like no damage to you. You just like sit there with your max stacks, the tier 1 towers hitting you, and it just does nothing. So you can see how, you hit level 6, 7, 8, and you have high points in this. You might not be doing as much damage with your skills, but you're still so hard to bring down that you will eventually whittle down the enemy if you buy Soul Ring and Mana Boots, other kinds of things like this to just spam your skills. So that's Reactive Armor. It's pretty straightforward and pretty simple. The one thing I will say about this is keep in mind that you do need to build these up. They don't last forever. So it's kind of one of those things that if you go into a fight or you're in the lane and you don't have a bunch of stacks built up, you need to be careful, because you need to build these stacks up before you enter the fight, before people start hitting you. It's better to have them at least not fully built up, but partially built up, so that you can kind of not take a bunch of damage in the beginning while they're right-clicking you, etc. So just keep that in mind. And obviously, you get a lot of armor, so you're good against right-clicks, but having that HP regen is good even against magic damage as well, because obviously the more HP regen you have, the more the magic damage will just kind of be shrugged off with that HP regen. So that's Reactive Armor, the main thing that makes this hero tanky, and the reason why this hero needs to be scared of Break as well. So later in the game when people get Silver Edge or have Break, Viper, anything like this that has a Break mechanic, just be careful about that as well. So that is Reactive Armor. And then lastly, we're going to look at Chakram here. This is the ultimate ability, and what this ability is another Saw-like ability. So you can just throw it out. It has a pretty long AoE. And what happens is, when you throw it out, you actually can't attack. So it's basically kind of like sacrificing your right-click for this little Saw that goes out. And it does AoE damage in that area, and then it also slows enemies that try to walk through it. So it's a kind of damage plus slow ability, and then when you press it again, the Saw comes back and does more damage and goes in the direction of wherever you are. So this is the ability that allows you to kind of just combo everything together and do a ton of damage and be very, very scary, because you can see how far I can throw that blade. Now, obviously, the speed is not like super fast, so you have to kind of predict it. So if the axe is running in this way, I want to be able to throw it out. I need to throw it in front of him, and then I can pull it back, and he's slowed again. These kinds of things. You can also just sit it there and make him slowed for a while. Just keep in mind that you are draining your mana, so I'll refresh a little bit here. So when I put this out, you probably were seeing in the beginning, there's a mana cost to put it out, but then also as it's sitting there spinning, my mana is slowly draining as well, so do keep that in mind. It's not just like you can have this ability out for free, but you will be able to combo this ability and do a ton of damage. And so how you do that is you throw it out. You just kind of let it sit there. You don't have to, but they're going to run away. And then what you do is you want to combo these two together with this. So what you'll do is you'll pull, you'll use your pull or your timber chain, and then when you go across the hero, you will hit Whirling Death, and then you'll activate your ult again. So I'll do this, and there you go. It lagged a little bit, I think. I don't know why it did that. That's kind of weird. I'll respawn the guy here. Or I'll do it with two. So I'll throw this out. Actually, let me refresh real quick so I get the mana back. Go like this, press it, and then pull it back in. And all with the combo, I do a ton of damage, and then I can run back at them. And obviously, if they're pretty close to trees, this is really good too, because you can just do this. And you can see how much damage I'm going to be doing, and you will do damage way into the late game, too. It's kind of insane how much damage you can do, especially against strength heroes into the late game. So that's kind of the basic combo. Now, you can kind of combo these things. You don't even need the Whirling Death. You can just always use this and then combo these two skills together like that. You can also just, like, put this in this direction and then walk over here, so it goes through both of them. There's a bunch of different things you can do. Obviously, use your imagination, but that's kind of the main basic combo that I'm talking about. This is also really good. All of these abilities are good for farming creeps as well. So obviously, when you have creep camps, you can throw this out, do this little combo, and pull it in, and usually farm creep camps in that one combo alone. So keep that in mind. That's also why you buy Soul Ring, because this hero is very, very mana intensive. So mana burn, again, is very good against this hero. I don't think I really mentioned that, but that's pretty much the gist of the hero. You can kind of do all of these things in combo and learn how to, push his limits, and you can just absolutely stomp games. I will just mention very briefly that there is the Aghanim Shard. This allows you to kind of push towers and things because you have this little fire ability that you can shoot out. It does damage, again, like all of his other abilities pretty much do damage, and it works on towers. It just gives him a little bit extra damage there. It's pretty good. There's also a small move slow, which is important too. It also burns down the trees, as you saw that hit the tree there. And then the Ags, which I will talk about briefly, just gives you a second Chakram. So basically, you just have two ultimates that you can throw out. It's pretty much the same thing. It's just there's two of them now with two abilities there. So it just gives you extra damage, extra slow, all this kind of stuff. Very, very good on the hero. Obviously, it's very mana intensive, like I said. So keep in mind, you do need to build up mana. You do need to make sure you have mana going into fights. But in any case, that's Timbersaw. Those are his abilities. That's how he works in general, and how do you combo all of those abilities together. So now that we understand that, let's jump into a game and see how he's played. So now we're jumping into a game of ATF playing his classic Timbersaw, and I was definitely trying to find ATF playing this hero for this guide because he's just one of the best, if not the best, Timbersaw right now. So the first thing that I'm going to show you, and this is just a classic laning stage. He plays this lane so well, and this is the perfect laning stage to explain to you how to play this hero. But you can see level 1, he takes a Whirling Death, and he immediately goes to secure the range creep. And this is what you're going to want to do in almost every single game with this hero, because level 1 Whirling Death is very good, as we see, not only to secure range creeps, but against a lot of carries who are weak level 1, like TA, he can do a significant amount of damage to them. Like you saw, he used basically 2 Whirling Deaths on that TA, and she's down to like 1/4 health, along with the arrow that Mirana had, and some right clicks as well from the position 4. But still, this is not very aggressive of a combo for the enemy here with TA and Tiny 5. It's just not that great. Obviously, he has to be careful of tossbacks, but still, it's really nothing that he has to be scared of. So he can go that level 1 Whirling Death, and then level 2, you're going to always get Reactive Armor. If you're not going to get Whirling Death level 1, then you will get Reactive Armor level 1, but it's usually just better to get this because you can usually get away with it and secure your first level or your second level with the first few waves. It's just almost always better to do that. So we see that once he gets level 2, this is kind of the first, I guess you would say, power spike for the hero. Probably level 3 as well when you get 2 points in reactive armor, because now it's very, very hard for them to deal with this hero. I mean, it already was, but now it's still very hard for them to punish him at all. And then once he gets level 3, it's pretty much going to be impossible for them to do anything to him, even with a good toss back, because he will just be so tanky, and you'll see that here in a second. So I'm going to fast forward here, because now it's pretty straightforward. He secured his first 2 levels. He's almost to level 3, and there's almost nothing that the enemy can do anymore. Now it's just kind of a game of when does he get too strong and too aggressive to actually just punish the enemy. So he's not being super aggressive. He will get a Whirling Death in on the TA there every once in a while, whenever he can, but he's just kind of playing for CS, playing for his farm, playing for his levels still. And I will fast forward even more a little bit here because, yeah, he's being aggressive, but he's just not going crazy. Like, they're diving a little bit, but he doesn't want to tank the tower a ton, although you can see he did tank a few hits and barely got damaged. He still wants to wait for his Soul Ring, which he's getting first, and he wants to wait for his higher levels. But as we fast forward here, you'll eventually see that the TA just won't be able to lane. In like a couple more minutes, a few more levels, and there's just nothing the TA is going to be able to do. So you can see he's still bullying the TA in the lane whenever she walks up because, you know, he's just like, what are you going to do here? What are you going to do to me? There's absolutely nothing. I have 2 points of Whirling Death, 2 points of reactive armor. And the other thing I want you to notice is how he's constantly keeping up these 12 stacks. Like, he's constantly aggroing the TA with the right click so that the creeps attack him to keep these stacks pretty much up constantly so there's nothing they can do. So they never catch him basically with his pants down, having no stacks. And now that he's level 6, he has his ult, he has 3 points in this reactive armor. The TA just left. Like, the TA left like a minute or 2 ago. And this is exactly what you're going to be able to do in every single Timber game. And you can see he takes the tower just at 6 minutes, like 6:30, 6:20 some. He takes that tier 1 tower, and you should be able to do this in every single one of your Timbersaw games, because the point is that if the enemy doesn't leave the lane, you should kill them. So you can see he's 1-0-0, I think because of a first blood before the lane even started. But regardless, like, he hasn't really killed anybody, and that's largely because the enemy's playing, you know, they're good as well. They know what the Timbersaw does, so they just leave the lane. They just don't let him get kills. But in your games, they might not be smart enough to leave the lane, and so you should easily be able to kill the enemy. As you can see here, there's just nothing that the Tiny can do. Like, the Tiny just has to run away and stall for as long as possible, but you're going to eventually get those kills if you learn how to combo and aim his skills correctly. And the same thing would happen to the TA. If the TA stood there and got hit with a Chakram, there's just nothing the TA could do. So the TA has to leave. The Tiny's the 5 position, so he's just kind of sitting there, like, basically tanking the gank, essentially, just wasting the Timbersaw's time in some ways because he knows that he's the least valuable kill on the map, but somebody's going to die to Timbersaw if they approach him. So this is the perfect way to play the laning stage. You can do this in every single game, and this is also the perfect example of how to transition into that mid-game portion. You want to pressure very hard. Now, it was almost too early that he took the tower, like so early, that he can't really pressure mid or other lanes. Like, he doesn't really want to go to other lanes. He wants to let mid do, you know, mid's thing, maybe go to the safe lane and gank the off laner there, these kinds of things. So he's really pressuring this tier 2 tower. In some games, you could even get like half damage on this tier 2 tower early on. You can see it's already like an eighth of the health of it is gone. And if you get really aggressive, you could even maybe take a tier 2 tower at 10 minutes. Otherwise, once you start doing this early game and getting your farm up and just getting levels and threatening anybody that tries to contest you in lane, then that's when you kind of transition to that early mid-game portion where you're starting to do more than just own your lane and destroy those towers in that lane. And so we'll skip ahead to that in just a second here. Okay, so I fast-forwarded here a little bit, only like a minute or so, if anything, and I just wanted to show you this specific section of the game as we have a little glitch here. Let's see if I can fix that just by fast-forwarding to 10 seconds. There we go. Just this sequence. We can see how the mid player, the Puck, and his Undying and a bunch of allies basically come to the top lane with him to try to put pressure on the map. And that's largely because if we just pause the state of the game here as he's trying to kill this Tiny, we can see that the enemy mid tower is already dead. His safe lane tower is already dead. They're taking, you know, this lane, which is a lot harder to defend, especially because he is kind of coming to defend it, but it's not really what they're going to be able to do, mount a defense against an Enchantress. It's not really the best thing to try to do. So basically what they're doing is they're saying, this is the place that I can put the most pressure on the map. Yes, you can defend as a Timbersaw, but a lot of times you want to be aggressive rather than defensive. So this tower is just the best place to put his aggression towards, and then obviously, you know, he's chasing the Tiny because the Tiny was here and these kinds of things. They're just running around, getting kills, being very aggressive on the map. But I just wanted to emphasize that, yes, this game, he is staying top. He's pressuring the tier 2. But that's not always what you want to do. The only real reason that he's doing this and pressuring tier 2 and just consistently killing his towers because, one, it's very valuable, But two, the other two lanes, the other two places on the map really are not that significant this game because of the state of the game. And I just wanted to say that this is how you transition in the mid game to putting pressure on the map. You want to identify the lane that allows you to put the most pressure, that is like the most important for you to be aggressive on, and then you go there and you put that pressure on, you become unkillable, you threaten in that lane. So we can see that this was top lane in this game because he was already doing so much damage to the tier 2 that he was able to get this tier 2 at 1430. That's absolutely insane. But in other games, in your games, if the enemy mid tower isn't taken, a lot of times this is going to be mid tower. You're going to want to go here and try to push that tower because you're so strong. This tower right here, you can see it's barely damaged at all. No one really cares about that tower. This tier 1 tower in the off lane here for Dire is the worst tower in the game. It's literally the most useless tower in the game. So you're very rarely going to go to the safe lane. The only time you do that is if your carry is struggling, really needs a lane to go to, so he can go top, he can get the jungle there, and then you can go bottom for a little bit, defend that, and then transition to the mid lane. So that's what you would do. That's how you transition in the mid game with Timbersaw. Identify the place on the map that you can put the most pressure, go there, and just be super aggressive against those towers. Now the next thing I wanted to show you is basically how to mid-game team fight with this hero. So we can see that a team fight does start breaking out, and he goes in with his Chakram, but unfortunately for him, he can't really do anything against a Mars with BKB. So the Mars actually does end up getting the kill there on the Bloodseeker, but once the BKB runs out, he can pretty much have his reign in this fight. Also, the Mars and the Spear and the Arena are one of the big things that stops him from actually being able to do what he wants in the game. So he's able to just kind of run around and cause chaos and havoc in these fights now that the Mars is down. Despite his carry Bloodseeker being down, he has free reign now because those spells are down, because the hero is gone. And so the main thing I want to show you in this fight is, one, that you do need to prioritize what heroes to go on, what heroes need to be countered, what heroes hurt you the most. And we can also see that he takes a ton of damage in this fight because he needs BKB, he needs to not be locked down or slowed or these kinds of things, and he needs to get out because he actually takes a ton of damage against the minus armor of the TA and the pure damage of the Enchantress there. And so the main thing I wanted to show you there is not only target prioritization, but the fact is that in the mid game you can no longer be this this insanely tanky hero that needs to frontline take all the spells. You need to transition out of that kind of frontline role somewhere around the 18 to 20 to 22 minute mark and start kind of being a little bit more passive, a little bit more picky, or choosing your fights a little bit better. You don't always just want to get initiated on, because you will be able to get bursted in a lot of different scenarios with the right lineup or against the right lineup when they have counters or a lot of lockdown for you. But when you know that the enemy doesn't have spells or they're not using spells on you, you can get aggressive and you still want to be using your spells in the aggressive way and doing a lot of damage, because you can still output a lot of damage. So that's, again, what this fight is exactly like. We see that he kind of just runs past the Mars because he knows the Mars is not someone he wants to deal with. Then he gets out, and this is what you want to be doing in the mid game, and this is why this hero is such a high mechanical skill hero, because you need to kind of play on the edges of fights. You need to go in, you need to get out, you need to make people chase you around and just cause havoc and be super annoying in the fights. You don't want to just like straight up run in and tank everything. You need to play in and out. You need to play on the outskirts. You need to know your limits and these kinds of things. He also knows that Mars is the lockdown, but the Enchantress with the pure damage is actually the damage that kills him. So with one of those two heroes dead, he can be very, very safe. And now they can actually secure Roche. Even without their Bloodseeker alive, they're able to actually do Roche and secure it, and he's actually able to take it. But I just wanted to show you those two kind of fights, because a lot of people on Timber will feel like, oh, they're unkillable, they have the snowballing start, they're really, really good, and they're just dominating the game, and then they'll throw it away because they, the enemy gets some items, they get some BKBs, they get more damage, and then they kill you, and you threw your whole lead away, you threw that gold lead away and that kill streak and all that kind of stuff, and it ends up really hurting you in the long run. So there is a time you need to transition and realize you're not unkillable anymore, you're not the tankiest thing ever. You need to play fights almost like a spirit hero, where you're in and out, you're doing a ton of damage, you're making them chase you around, you're causing havoc, these kinds of things, and that's the transition that you need to make, and that's obviously all kind of feel for every game. And so that's how to play mid-game team fights on Timber. Now the last thing I'm going to show you is basically how you scale into the late game with this hero. A lot of other carries, a lot of other heroes scale a lot with damage, damage items, right clicks, these kinds of things. That's not really what Timbersaw does. Timbersaw scales with survivability. So you can see he has Yules, he has Hood, he has Shivas, BKB, he has pretty much all survivability spells. And so now that it's 34 minutes in the game, now that he has all of these, or survivability items, sorry, now that he has all of this, he can just kind of run into the fight, cause insane chaos, and he basically lives, despite all of the stuff being directed at him. Like, there's so much that the enemy is pouring onto him, and he's just able to take all of that damage, tank everything, and he's still able to live. So look at that. He Timber Chains out, but then he gets tossed back in, so it's canceled. He's low HP, gets speared to a Rax there, and yet he's still able to live and still able to do a ton of damage and be threatening because this hero just is so survivable later on in the game once he has all of these items. It's just absolutely ridiculous what this hero can do. And you can see that he's top net worth in the game, so he is pretty much solo carrying this game, honestly. He took the Aegis. His Bloodseeker hasn't been playing that well. His Bloodseeker's died a bunch. And so the one thing I didn't show you really in this game, but it's kind of obvious on almost every core, is you want to be farming in between those times where you feel like you can be aggressive and your team wants to fight. You do want to be farming, clearing camps. You can farm very, very quickly on this hero. Clear camps, clear waves, all this kind of stuff. And then once you get to this point where you have all these survivability items, it's just so hard for the enemy to deal with you. And this is the main way that you scale into the late game. So, in any case, that's how you play Timbersaw. I hope you guys enjoyed the guide and find it useful and helpful. This hero is a hero that you can really stomp with if you get good with. So, that's how to play Timbersaw. As always, guys, like, comment, subscribe, all those kinds of things if you enjoyed the video. Go to my Patreon if you haven't already and support me there if you want to see more videos like this in the future. You can also go there for coaching as well. Join the Discord if you haven't already. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.